I'm here now with Jason Snyder, the CIO for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and Tony Sauerhoff, the CISO for the state of Texas. Tony, Jason, how you doing?
Great.
Doing okay, Jake. How are you?
Doing so well. It's so great to have you here. We're talking about all things cybersecurity modernization here today at the summit. And one of the things that I'm really excited to dive into with you all is this concept of sort of building that workforce pipeline, both one that starts in academia, because we have some higher ed participation here today, from Tony's state of Texas. Texas and A&M CISO is joining us as part of today's conversation, and also just workforce efforts in general that build that workforce and that cyber workforce pipeline for states like you. So I guess a good place to start, and Jason, we'll start with you, is when you think about building that workforce, when you think about that pipeline, what are some of the things that you're doing? Where do you kind of get started, and how do you get these programs off the ground?
So it starts with a critical problem statement, which is 30% of my staff is over 60. And so like doing nothing and just sort of like, hoping everything will be okay, isn't an option. And so we're also unable to hire like for like with these people retiring. We can't hire in the expertise like we're losing. We can't afford it, and we finding them on the marketplace with all the competition in the Boston area is difficult. So we are looking at new ways of recruiting talent, and it starts with looking at internship programs and bringing in people fresh out of college who are actively interested, and then building a mentorship program so they pair up with people within our SOC so they can learn and continue to build from that. We're also looking at the career shift types of people. So we have an active apprentice program where we work and we bring in people who are making mid-career shifts or are interested in cybersecurity, and they can follow the same flow where we have mentorship program. They're part of the SOC. They continue to grow with people, with other people, other leaders in the SOC, and grow and learn the whole cyber exercise within the Commonwealth.
And Tony, I mean, I know you have a bunch of stuff going on in the state of Texas. Tell me a little bit about sort of what of those efforts that Jason was just talking about that maybe resonate with you and that you have underway, and also maybe some other creative ideas you guys have down in the Lone Star State.
Yeah, thanks, Jake. We're doing a lot of the same stuff. Not a lot of this is original great ideas, right? We're trying to all develop talent, and build that pipeline, as best we can. We recently started out a high school volunteer program. We call it a volunteer program. It's not even an internship program. And in the summers, we're bringing in high school, typically between junior and senior year of high school, but to expose them to the career field, build some relationships, and start cultivating that pipeline at that young age. And then we move into our college, more traditional college internship program, that's very similar to what Jason described that they're doing there in Massachusetts. We had 4 interns with our team last summer, and we'll have more today. And one is actually a candidate for a current position, one from last summer, that we're talking to. And we have some really good experiences, and got some really good work. It goes both ways, right? It's not just about exposing the interns to the workforce, but again, building those relationships, and they really do provide some valuable work as well. We have an apprenticeship program in Texas too. Our previous legislative session, our legislature passed a bill authorizing DIR, our agency, to enter into an agreement with a junior college, to institute a program to develop a state information technology credential. And we have sort of, along the idea of maybe moving away a little bit from the idea that everyone coming into our field needs to have a traditional 4-year degree, right? We know that's not necessarily a requirement to be productive, and a valuable member of our field. And we're actually close to bringing on and hiring the first 2 apprentices from that program that we have. with Austin Community College. And lastly, I'll mention our RSOC program, or our Regional Security Operations Center program. We have the first RSOC stood up a couple of years ago out in West Texas in San Angelo at Angelo State University. They're all in partnerships with universities. The second and third RSOCs are in the process of standing up right now. One is at UT Austin, and the other is at UT Rio Grande Valley, all the way down in the far southern tip of Texas. We're hopeful that we'll have at least 4 more RSOCs identified and funded here out of this current legislative session. But those RSOCs are, in addition to providing some really valuable SOC services and cyber services like EDR and NDR for free to local entities in their regions. We have, by the way, 7,000 local government entities in Texas. And these RSOCs, the idea eventually there will be 12 roughly. And they'll divide up into geographic regions and provide services to the local entities in their regions. But in addition to providing these services to these local entities in need out there, they're staffed largely by students of the university. So the students are getting time. They're paid employees of these RSOCs, and they're getting time outside of their school program, outside of their academic program, working in a real world SOC. We've had 1 or 2 so far out of the first class of the San Angelo, the ASU SOC, that have turned over and become full-time employees of that SOC at the university. There have been others that, again, I mentioned the size of our and the number of our local entities, just to kind of give you an idea of how many local government entities will be around and supported by each RSOC. Those entities all also need cyber, staff, right? Cyber expertise. So while a lot of these students that are graduating with time under their belt and experience working in these RSOCs may not go to work for the state or even stay at the university, the hope is that many of them will stay in their regions and go to work for the local entities in their regions that need their help too. So I'll pause there, but that's kind of a rundown of our formal programs that we have going here in Texas.
That's great. And, I think one of the things that stands out to me about both of your efforts, both Jason's and Tony's, is that turnover of people from interns or apprentices or volunteers into full-time staff, to keep that pipeline going. And so, when we think about that pipeline, we think about the various challenges that government faces when it comes to workforce. Namely, the top is probably on salary. If you're a cybersecurity employee somewhere in the private sector, you can make a heck of a lot more money than you can make in state government or local government. But a lot of these programs that you're talking about are sort of creative approaches to solving that challenge, not just with salary, but some of the other challenges that come up with workforce. So, Jason, I want to go to you. I mean, when you think about the challenges that government faces from a workforce perspective, tell us a little bit more about how some of these efforts are kind of bridging that gap.
Sure. I think it starts with really establishing a collaborative and learning culture. And so for each of our staff that come in to the SOC, we start with actually training them across the different areas and relevant services the SOC should understand. So a person coming in, we're going to work with them on understanding how our network is built. They're going to understand how our cloud systems are built. So we're going to work with that team for a bit. They're working with our risk management team to understand the overall degrees of risk that affect us in Massachusetts. We have a series of formal training sessions built on monitoring and configuring access control, authentication, encryption, cryptography, and really diving into that space. And then finally, we acknowledge sort of the fact that we are a business. We're trying to keep all these systems live. So we had them work with our incident response teams and our business continuity teams. So they understand precisely that these are the services that run the Commonwealth and the importance of them all. And so it's because we're diving into this idea of a learning-based culture, and the fact that we do work across different teams, and you should know these different teams, it becomes quite evident quite early that the people coming in are engaged with others. And when I talk to the interns, when I talk to the apprentices, they're all very excited about the opportunity they've been given to learn in this space. They feel there's part of something greater. They understand how the SOC is affecting everything else, not only because the IT services underlie all the services that the Commonwealth provides. So they understand not only what the SOC does, but what EOTS does and how it relates to all of those services of state government.
Yeah, and Tony, in Texas, you talk about it, you listed a number of those programs that you have stood up, and you know, talk us through a little bit about how some of those are helping bridge that gap of that workforce challenge that we all know maybe a little too well.
Yeah, I mentioned when I was talking about the internship program that we have one applying for the current open position today from last year, and that's to piggyback on what Jason said about culture. It starts with culture and developing that, and this intern or former intern is interested in coming back to work for us in a full-time capacity because of that, right? And that's the idea when we do have these folks in a volunteer capacity or an internship capacity, is to show them that what we have, the program that we have in place that is there. When you're developing folks, it goes two ways. Developing folks into better experienced, more capable employees is what we ultimately want to get to for to fill those higher, more experienced roles within the organization. But it also makes those younger folks more valuable too, right? And you talked about going out into the private sector and making more money, and some of them will do that one day, and that's okay too. But they learn and understand that opportunity is there for them, and that they can come in and they can spend a few years and they can develop and grow, and that will help them and support that. And by doing things like cross training and moving them around to different areas, we've got our office of the state CISO team where we focus on a lot of policy and governance. We've got our state SOC team that secures the perimeter of the network. We've got our internal agency cybersecurity team that operates and does the internal agency work, just like every other agency has their own internal team, right? So we've got different areas and different things that we can expose folks to and really kind of round out their experience in cybersecurity. And so that when they are either at some point they're able to move up into a higher level position here with us at the agency, or they get to a point where they've grown as much as they can grow with us, and they move on, and we backfill them, back from the bottom like we did when we brought them in.
Yeah, and, I think that all of this together, we've been talking about workforce and cyber workforce as long as I can remember, right? As long as I've been doing this job, we've been talking about it. And so I'm curious sort of what this looks like going forward, right? You two both outlined a couple really good examples of programs that are working, right? You're hiring good folks in your states. What does this look like going forward? What does this enable you all to do down the line? And sort of how does all of this come together into like that overall workforce boom? Tony, we'll go to you first on this one.
Yeah, sure. I think what it looks like going forward is a lot more of the same, and continuing to look for other ways to grow and build that pipeline. I'll mention a school district in Northeast in Texas, Northeast Independent School District in San Antonio, who purchased a Walmart store of the facility and turned it into a cyber training center that's physically in the center of their school district, and they're starting through in ninth grade, training high schoolers, and they're graduating high school with certifications, A plus and Network plus and Security plus, and preparing them to come out into the workforce right out of high school. So it's more of that, and a lot of it is trying to look where we can create things like that, like with the RSOC program, and a lot of it is looking at with the school district I just described, and just where we can support that, right? We can't do everything, but we can encourage and cultivate and support. So it's going to be just continuing to look for ways that we can add more connections into that pipeline. And what that allows us to do, Jake, is just to, ideally, right? We're never looking for those higher level, hard to find, unaffordable, talents that we just have difficulty with, right? Ideally, if it works right and it continues to work right over time, we're building and growing our own workforce. And each time we have a vacancy, when someone does get to a higher level and leaves, we can just shift everyone up a level, and we've prepared everyone for that, right? And then we come and we backfill from our pipeline. So ideally, that's what it lets us do over time, and we just keep looking for ways to grow that.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jason, you can close us out here, talking about sort of looking forward, all of this stuff together, all of these programs. What does it enable for a state like Massachusetts to think about or to do when it comes to government workforce?
So, um, the importance of cybersecurity has never been greater. And so what we're seeing is we're expanding really the role of our security managers. We're saying, hey, you need to build an entire process for bringing in new talent, training them up, building them, and being ready to support the very mission critical nature of cybersecurity in the Commonwealth. And so we are actively training and working with our management team to ensure that they get the importance of training and the importance of building a good culture so people want to stay. We had an AI program where we had students come in, and the students were so excited to be given the opportunity to find solutions that they were like, we want to stay. We want to stay here. We recognize we get paid a lot more, but we like working here. And I think the same thing applies in the cybersecurity space. We create a welcoming area where we allow people to grow and prosper. They'll stay here regardless of the money.
That's so cool. Yeah, that's a perfect, uplifting, and positive note to end on, especially in a conversation that for so many years has been kind of dark and dismal. So it's really exciting to see progress on that front. Jason, Tony, thanks for being with us today. Thanks for sharing all these insights.
Thank you, Jake.
Jake.
And to our audience, stay tuned for more from today's Cybersecurity Modernization Summit.